Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, April the 6th, 2023. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. We are back on track here with our fantastic guests, the Dean, Bill Kurelic, Mark Porter. Two of the best when it comes to recruiting, definitely the two best when it comes to Ohio, and we are loaded today. The Ohio State staff has done a great job providing us content for this show. I've said sometimes we don't have much to talk about, and today was a day we had to lop off some really good topics. Let's start with what's become routine around here, and that is the addition of five-star receivers. Milan Graham, New Haven, Indiana, arguably the best receiver in the Midwest, a five-star. I think everyone thought he was coming to Ohio State. He was basically discovered at the Ohio State camp by Brian Hartline last year. Ohio State was his first major offer, and when that happens, it's a big deal. Bill, tell us about Milan Graham's recruitment, what it means to add him to the fold, how it fits into the grand scheme of things. They already have Jeremiah Smith, the number one wide receiver in the country, committed. And then Mark, Mylan is a guy you have broken down in the past, and you can let us know what they're getting. William, the floor is yours.
Yeah, let's go back to what you started with, Dan. When he walks into the Ohio State camp, this doesn't happen very often. And, not a lot has been known about this. He doesn't even have a scholarship offer.
Many
walks in Ohio State camp, blows it out, and walks out with an offer. Usually when a kid like that, of that ability, he doesn't just walk into a camp all of a sudden and get an offer for the first time, especially, at the beginning of June. Somebody has offered him some point before, but, you watched him, and I know Mark was there as well that day, and you're blown away by him. And, after that, obviously the offers continued to roll in. I think everybody pretty much knew for the last few weeks it was not a matter of when Milan Graham committed to Ohio State, or if he committed to Ohio State, but more like when he committed. And he went ahead and pulled the trigger finally and announced for Ohio State. So that gives them, as you said, Dan, two five-star wide receivers in the class. It's going to be a class of 3 or maybe 4 wide receivers. And spaces are tightening up. And that's part of the reason why, I've felt for a little bit now that Jeremiah McClellan would likely end up at Ohio State's class. And now that space is tightened up, he cannot wait around a long, long time. And I don't think he will. And I went ahead and crystal balled him to Ohio State last night. And the beat goes on for Brian Hartline. What else can you say?
Mark, you've done a review of Mylan. And anybody who has not seen the recent camp video, just showing his releases from the line of scrimmage, it's almost awe-inspiring. When we discussed it, he really does look almost like a carbon copy of Chris Olave in terms of his body type and his movement skills. With Jeremiah Smith being the Marvin Harrison clone, it's like Hartline's now just putting together some kind of dream team. Your thoughts on Mylan?
Yeah, when we talked about him last week, that's what we said. He's a lot like Chris Olave, same size, 170 pounds, not the biggest guy, but sometimes when you get those lighter guys, that's where the explosiveness comes from. You can't be heavy per se and be an explosive player. It's harder to do the heavier you get. So when you find these guys like this, and it's like Brian Hartline has a type. If there was a crowd full of 100,000 people, Brian Hartline could look out through it and find the girls that are his type very easily. He'd be like, there's 7 of them in that crowd. And I think it's the same thing when he's watching receiver film. When I keep breaking down these tapes, and even the one we're going to do on Jeremiah today, it's another receiver. I feel like I've seen this receiver before. I feel like it's just a continuation of some of last year's breakdowns. And at the risk of being repetitive for the Bucknut fans, as I'm doing the write-ups, I feel like I'm writing and giving the same thoughts again, but they're very positive thoughts. They're the type of thoughts you want, and I think it's what Brian Hartline sees. Anytime I see these things and want to say these things about a receiver, we got a winner here. And I think I'm starting to feel that same way. Like whenever I break down, I'm like, here we go again. It's another Garrett Wilson clone. It's another Chris Olave film. It's another, just Marvin Harrison or Emeka Ibuka clone. So same thing here. But the explosion, the speed, those are all the markers I think he's really looking for. I mean, the route running, he can polish it up a little bit, but these guys have go-go juice. They run out of the stadium. They're so fast. So another good one here.
Yeah, Dan, let me interrupt real quick. Get back to what you started this with, Dan, watching that highlights of Graham on Bucknuts on that video, releasing at the line of scrimmage. I mean, it's spot on. It really, if you want to jam this kid at the line of scrimmage, I would say good luck. It's just probably not going to happen. And I want to real quick also say, a little off of this topic, but kind of on it. It was out there that Michigan's new quarterback commitment, Jaden Davis, is working to flip some Ohio State commitments. I know Jeremiah Smith has been mentioned and so forth. And I would like to say kind of the same thing on that one. Good luck. Trying to flip these guys, these wide receivers, that are committed to Ohio State. When you are wide receiver, good luck.
Listen, I can say this over and over again, and it gets repetitive, but it's a good kind of repetitive. The people that come to Ohio State are coming here to go to the NFL. Every kid that comes to Ohio State is the best player in the history of his town. And when you go to college, just like if you're pre-law, pre-med, or you're going to the school that specializes in that, by the way, the NFL draft is coming up. They're going to have the number one receiver picked. It's just like they're into the the select, not recruit part. I've said this before. It's like back in the day with Duke and Carolina in basketball. They didn't recruit. I'm telling you, they selected. I know one kid that was walking to the podium to commit to Michigan, and I said to him, if 30 seconds before you get to the podium, North Carolina calls, where are you going to school? And he said, North Carolina. Okay, so to be a wide receiver at Ohio State has now gotten like that. And just one anecdotal story. The last Indiana receiver that made a big impression as a junior was Terry McLaurin. And they sent him back to Indiana without a scholarship to earn one his senior year. So Milan Graham, not being known, getting one on day one at a camp lets you know what you got. And super, super impressive. All right, Bill. That was the appetizer. This will be the entree. Air Noland visited Ohio State this past weekend. He is going to decide where he's going to college verbally for the masses if we don't crash the site on Saturday. Other suitors include Miami and Texas A&M. Alabama's even been mentioned at times late here. I don't think they're really in the mix, but it's important to note that Miami and Texas A&M are known on the recruiting trail for things other than football. I think we all know what that might be, and it has something to do with cash. Air Noland will make his decision this weekend. What's your vibe?
If Air Noland were to announce right this minute, I feel good about saying that it would be Ohio State. That is, what I've the vibe is that. Great visit to Ohio State, I am told, this past weekend. They, obviously rolled out the red carpet. They had the Student Appreciation Day scrimmage practice, and Air Noland, I think he was pretty much on, taking snaps. He was that close to the action the whole time. He didn't stray far from Corey Dennis and Ryan Day as that scrimmage was going on. He listened intently and got everything digested, so to speak. And I think he loves it, Ohio State. He talked to Jelani Thurman, who, of course, is from the same high school. And if he comes to Ohio State, Air Noland, he will be throwing to Jelani Thurman because Jelani Thurman is going to be a big-time tight end for Ohio State. Jelani Thurman loves it at Ohio State. And, of course, he has let Air Noland know that. Jelani Thurman basically has told Air Noland, everything they told me when I was being recruited is exactly as it is now that I'm here. And that's what an endorsement, for how you were recruited and all. So, if Air Noland were to pick today, I really would be shocked if it wasn't Ohio State, but he's announcing on Saturday. And as you know, the NIL is a huge part of most college decisions now. That's my one concern, I guess, if I'm Ohio State, is that at the last minute, with all the NIL stuff flying, that somebody can change his mind. So we'll see. But I like the Buckeyes, and we'll see if anything can change his mind. Again, that's my perception, that his mind is on Ohio State.
Marcus, you have done a review of him. Interestingly, he's a left-hander. I can't remember the last big-time left-hander they've gone after. You guys can correct me. I know there was some chat on the boards where the name Belisari came up. Bowserman came up. He's right-handed. By the way, if you have a chance to go back and look at that graphic they did for Bowserman, it's the funniest thing ever done at Ohio State. And those who know. Mark, what would they be getting? Excuse me, in Air Noland?
Yeah, when you say lefty, I'm a lefty, so I like lefties. The first thing that I kind of wrote when in the comments is you don't notice he's a lefty when you watch him right away because he's got such a fluid throwing motion. It doesn't. Most lefties, when you see him throw, it stands out as awkward. Like, oh, something's different, and your brain automatically goes, what's different about this? Oh, he's a lefty. He's so smooth that you just get used to it, and you don't, kind of like a Steve Young or something. You forget they're lefties. Unbelievable smooth throwing motion. He repeats the same thing every time with the spiral, and he's years ahead of where he should be. We slowed down some plays in the film where he's actually doing a fake and looking off at the same time and coming back across the field and doing it instantaneously. Like, he snaps his eyes over, gets the pitcher and fires, which that's about as good as it gets. A short window of time to decide and decipher things, and you're still throwing accuracy. If you've noticed, there's some guys that stare at their targets and wait for them to come open, and they still don't have it. When guys like this just get a quick snapshot, that tells me we're dealing with someone who's a little better than the rest in the mind area, which is hard to evaluate on film at the high school level because a lot of throws are one-read throws that are pretty easy. Checks the box in arm strength, has ideal height, weight, speed, and he runs very well. We only had 3 or 4 clips on there, but man, I think he's one of those guys that'll beat you at his feet. I don't want to get excited. He's not Mike Vick or anything like that, but this Ohio State offense, I know the fans want that extra dimension that Stroud kind of showed up late in the year with, like, oh, well, he can run. Well, where was this? I think that would help the offense. It would, maybe get you some looks that if they had to crowd the box or be worried about a running quarterback with the speed we have at receiver, it may be, touchdown city. Maybe that's why we don't see those looks. But, boy, he's really good. Dylan Raiola, I loved him, and I think we threw out some comparisons like, he's so big and strong that the Josh Allen, Justin Herbert types come to mind. Maybe that would be an upside for him down the road. And I think I compared Air Noland to more of a Deshaun Watson. He looks to throw,
he does
not run. He's back there as a throwing quarterback. He, like Deshaun Watson, he can take off and run. He's just as fast as anybody. But those guys will stand back there and play quarterback first before they play athlete.
I think you made a great point, and I think the term, if you're going to nerd out, is eye manipulation, and he is special at that. And like you said, you don't really see that a lot in the high school quarterbacks.
High school is a 1 or 2 read system. Like we're reading the flat defender here. We're reading
they're throwing to Jelani Thurman.
Yeah, we're reading the deep third.
Find Jelani and throw it to him.
Yeah, in that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of high school receivers are guilty of having a best friend or a reliable receiver where they lock on a lot. So watching this kid truly execute an offense the way you should, the way it's drawn up and, staring guys down, it's pretty impressive.
So here's my final point on Air Noland, verbally at least. I'm playing around on the message boards, but before he commits, the schools he's considering, if Alabama is really not in the mix, and Bill, I want to get to that here in a second, if he's really considering Miami and Texas A&M versus Ohio State, this is purely a financial decision because you would never choose Miami and Texas A&M over Ohio State to play quarterback. as much as we say wide receiver U, the last 3 quarterbacks have been at the Waldorf Astoria in New York for the Heisman ceremony, okay? And if you're talking about money, if you project out what CJ is going to get signed for, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud, we're all handed a check of an average of $15 million before they spent a day in the NFL for a signing bonus. So there is no NIL deal out there now that's going to pay you $15 million. And if that's been reported, it's BS. So you're it's now or later. And by the way, the $15 million you get as a quarterback, they pay you after your signing bonus too. So Justin Fields, the late Dwayne Haskins, if you can even go further back, CJ Stroud's going to make a first or second pick $25 or $26 million in signing bonus. That is Air Noland family set up for several generations. So truly an incredible setup. Let's take a quick break here at the 16-minute mark, come back and talk about more great recruiting. All right, Bill, you have placed a crystal ball for Jeremiah McClellan. We talked about that quickly. Let's touch on that again. What is he like? They've got a little St. Louis pipeline going here. And then, Mark, a quick scouting report.
Yeah, Jeremiah was one of the many great players that visited Ohio State the weekend of March 25th on that Saturday when they had the scrimmage and all. And it was kind of a who's who of high school greats that were visiting Ohio State for that day, March 25th, and that weekend. He was one of them. I think that he wanted to wants to go through things methodically a little bit, drop his top 12 and so on and so forth, which he did. But talking to Jeremiah after that visit, he and his parents loved it at Ohio State. It was a visit that went extremely well. But he knows that, space isn't going to be open forever. Going through the process and all, he can't go through the process in all likelihood until the middle of July, because Brian Hartline is going to get those slots filled. So now with Milan Graham in and Jeremiah Smith in, it's really starting to tighten up. They're going to take 3 for sure. I could see 4. And you got some really great wide receivers out there still. So I think, I finally went ahead and dropped the crystal ball for him. And I feel good about that pick. And we'll see how much longer this one goes. But I like where Ohio State is at.
Mark, you've got a preview or a scouting report coming later, so we don't want to give away too much. But it does seem to me like Brian Hartline is like a mad scientist now and has sat back and said, all right, Jeremiah Smith is my Marvin Harrison. Milan Graham will be my Chris Olave. And I need a guy for the slot with some juice. Jeremiah McClellan reminds me of KJ Hill with like some extra burner on him. Has mad scientist come up with the ultimate trio?
Yeah, this player, I put a lot of his bubble screens and his jet sweeps in because he's got that running back ability. Like you're saying, he can make something out of nothing. You throw him something in space and he can jiggle out of it, and then he has the burst to take to the house. But he is that guy that you want to use in the slot, motion back and forth. He's not Paris Campbell with straight line speed, but he's got that maybe Curtis Samuel to him or something. Like you said, these guys have a type. He kind of reminded me of Brandon Ennis, 190 pounds. He's got some thickness to his lower body, so guys will drip off of him like water sometimes when they go to tackle him. They'll just slide down his body because he's got lower leg strength and lower leg power. But, yeah, we'll break him down. We're giving away a little bit much, so you're not going to watch the video.
Right. No, he's great, and he's definitely someone to look forward to. It's almost to the point now where we want you to watch the content and pay attention, but if Brian Hartline offers the guy, it's almost like the dude's been knighted now to me. I move on mentally, and same with quarterback. You're not going to get better recruiting at quarterback and wide receiver than they have right now. I'm not sure anybody's ever recruited at this level. So there's some more questions on that. We will get to the end with that. But I want to talk about 2 guys who have been in the news lately because they were on campus. They play the same position. We've talked about them a ton, and that is Aaron Scott from Springfield, Bryce West from Glenville, 2 I would say, elite corner prospects. Both were on campus earlier this week. Bill, there's been a lot of chatter about the team up north working Glenville and doing a better job in the state. Both those guys are on their radar. I'm confident Ohio State will get both. Should I be confident, and what would they be getting? William?
Well, I have both of them crystal ball to Ohio State, have had them crystal ball to Ohio State for a long time. And their visits, Aaron Scott and his mother were at Ohio State on Monday. It was a one-day visit. Bryce West and both of his parents were at Ohio State on Monday and Tuesday for a multi-day visit. And they spent a lot of time together. Things went very well. They have talked about, a lot of their scholarship offers are from the same schools. Michigan has offered both, as have, of course, the Buckeyes. So we've got a Michigan-Ohio State battle potentially set up there. And, I like Ohio State's chances. They have talked about going to the same school together. And I talked last night again with Aaron Scott, and he said, yeah, we've talked about it, and it would be great and all, but in the end, we're going to pick the school that's best for us. And if it ends up being the same school, great. I think it will be. I think it'll be Ohio State. I still feel good about them. Which, by the way, Demarion Witten, the tight end from Glenville, I like him up to Ohio State too. I like him to Ohio State a lot. He visited Ohio State this past weekend again. I believe he was at Ohio State for the March 25th scrimmage as well. But I continue to like the Buckeyes there. But he's going to go through the recruiting process, and visit schools before he decides. But getting back to West and Scott, they are going to go through the process. They're going to take their official visits. In the case of Scott, we're not going to be waiting a long time unless something changes after those visits. His plan is to take his visits, to visit Ohio State, most likely as his last visit. That would be the last weekend in June, and then make a decision shortly after that, either late June or early July. Bryce West has his visit to Ohio State locked in for that last weekend. So I think that they will both, in all likelihood, be together on the Ohio State campus again for their official visits that last weekend in June, giving the Buckeyes the last shot. I continue to like Ohio State there.
Mark, we've talked about him enough. Just quick, both are up to snuff nationally, and of the guys you've looked at, you can put in context. When was the last time we had two corners this good in one class?
Yeah, in recent memory, it's been a while. Mylan Graham, I'm trying to think of some of the guys that have come from Ohio, but we're not a corner state usually. It's the linebackers and linemen, tight ends, stuff like that. Both passed the sniff test. What I like to say about them is they're both safety bodies, safety tackling ability, playing corner with corner, wide receiver speed, ball skills. If either one of them flipped over a receiver, they're top receivers in the country.
By the way, these were two of the most boring guys to go watch in person because the other team literally never threw against them. It was to the point where we almost didn't scout their games. I'm not even kidding about that. We had to decide where to send guys at some point. It was like, you're not going to see anything. We could see that on tape. So everyone was sold. Let's go through some questions.
Dan, I got to tell you a quick anecdotal thing about Aaron West. I was talking to somebody about Aaron Scott.
Let's combine it. If you combine them, you'll have the greatest cornerback of all time. Go ahead.
Aaron Scott, I should say. I was talking to somebody about Aaron Scott and the visit that he and Bryce West had to Ohio State when they were there together. I said they're pretty much – Ohio State's got a shot at a lot of great cornerbacks in this class. Miles Lockhart and Xavier Brown and
Kobe Black.
I could go on and on. But I said, when you look at it, West and Scott are pretty much at the top of the food chain as far as what Ohio State wants and has to get. And the person said to me, they said, I think that was the exact same words that Ryan Day used when he was talking to the two of them. You guys are at the top of the food chain. And we really, being Ohio guys, want you to stay in Ohio.
Some of it is luck. You can't control who's in your class every year, but a pair of twin offensive linemen that are excellent, and a pair of corners at this level is, I'd have to go back and check. I'm not sure Ohio's been that productive for the Buckeyes in some time, so let's not look a gift horse in the mouth there. We've got actually a bunch of really good questions here, some real good follow-ups. I think we hit the left-handed quarterback stuff. Let's do this. William, you're up. Any word on Elias Rudolph and Booker Pickett? Elias Rudolph, of course, the Taft defensive end who has migrated south to Deerfield Beach, Booker Pickett, the nephew of Ryan Pickett, I believe, from Florida as well. Both are guys on the edge who make life heck for the quarterback. Bill, the latest.
Well, I'm going to be checking again on Elias Rudolph and probably in the next week, because I was told that when last I talked about where he's going to end up, it still wasn't known. He is at Deerfield Beach in Florida now. He had not ruled out the possibility of coming back to Ohio and playing his senior year of football at Taft High School. They were hoping to get some confirmation or know what is going to happen by mid-April. So I'm going to be checking on that in the next, say, week or so to see if he has made, if we do know where. And that's an important part of his recruitment. If he stays in Florida at Deerfield Beach through the end of his senior season, I think that throws things more up in the air a bit. If he comes back and he's at Taft for his senior season, I think that greatly favors Ohio State. So we'll see what happens on that one. Not to say that he couldn't end up at Ohio State even if he plays his senior season in Deerfield Beach, but I think it'd be better, obviously, for Ohio State if he comes back. As far as Pickett, he is a legacy for Ohio State, again, with Ryan Pickett, but he also has connections and legacy-wise to Florida State, for instance. So that's going to be a tough one to see what happens there. But I think it was safe to say Ohio State is absolutely in the running for him to follow through with his Ohio State legacy and be a Buckeye. But again, he's got connections at some Florida schools too. So we'll see.
A little bit interesting note on Elias Rudolph. And we got this from Andrew Ivins, who the director of scouting for the network, who's based in Fort Lauderdale and really knows Florida better than anybody. It wasn't like Rudolph transferred to IMG or American Heritage. He transferred to a school that's kind of floundering in football. So Ivins was actually kind of surprised he chose Deerfield Beach. I think it was more like, Bill, you've told us in the past, just his mom wanting to get in the warm weather and something they had planned for a while. So perhaps that could work in Ohio State's favor. It's not like IMG where, a lot of the SE schools have a condo across the street ready to go back over and check the kids out all the time.
And if he comes back to Ohio, Taft, as Mark will tell you, is loaded. They went into the playoffs and all that, and they got a lot of those guys back. They're going to win a lot of games.
All right. Ryan Snyder asked quickly, any intel on transfer kids signing with Buckeye hoops? I would say the name to watch is Jamison Battle out of Minnesota. William. Charles Lester or Kobe Black? Which one would you rather have? Charles Lester, I believe, is a Florida guy favoring Florida State.
He's from Sarasota. I just broke him down, and so is I'm breaking down both of those guys that are probably playing on the screen behind me.
Kobe Black is actually a quarterback skill type guy who plays some corner and would project a corner at Carrollton from Texas. We talked about him with Brian Perrone the other day, and he said he's a legit 5-star. So, Bill, who do you think they'd rather have?
I think they'd love to have either.
First?
Yeah. Whoever. They're both great players, and I guess that's really tough. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Lester. But I'll what do you think, Mark? I mean, you're breaking them down.
When I was doing their film, I did a very similar breakdown on both. I did half of their highlights on offense to show you what explosive receivers and athletes they were, but then I did the other half where they play on defense, and boy, are they long. And I thought the question would be even better for Bill. I'll throw this one back. Who would you rather have, those two or Bryce West and Aaron Scott?
Oh, man.
Always staying
but,
safe,
but,
Bill.
but yeah, I mean, but those
right now, guys, I'll be back.
yeah. But I mean, really, that's the type of, like, you couldn't tell between which one you liked. I probably couldn't say between either one. They're both long, prototypical speed, burst, athletic ability. I mean, again, we're breaking down players for Ohio State. They better all look like this. They better be top of the food chain. So, yeah, these are top of the food chain guys, too.
Wonderful. Good one here, Bill. This is what I was kind of referring to earlier. The Oracle. It's rumored that Alabama wants Air Noland over Julian Sand. Which one does Ohio State really want? This is a reference to Julian Sand. I believe if he wasn't the first quarterback they offered in the class, he was close. He is committed to Alabama. Makes for a very interesting conundrum there, Bill. How would you work it out? What's your vibe?
Well, my vibe is that Sand stays with Alabama and his commitment there, and Noland ends up at Ohio State would be my vibe right now. Again, though, it's not until Saturday that Noland announces, so we'll see. But that's my current vibe.
Bucks. This is your wheelhouse, Marcus. Up your way. Has Ohio State offered Brian Robinson or just no interest?
Yeah, we've taken this question before. They've had interest. They had him down for the Michigan game. If you follow Instagram and Twitter, you see how the end of that game went with the Robinson tweet. I'm not sure it was in favor of Ohio State. It was more in favor of Michigan. Most of the activity I see now is Michigan lean. I think NIL will be in play for Brian Robinson. He has top echelon talent. He could be a Buckeye, but I think some of these other defensive ends that are defensive linemen that Ohio State likes, he might be a little farther down the pecking order nationally. I'm breaking down another one right now from that Ohio State's offering. He's big time. So he's got some big time national guys to fight off, and I think he's in a Michigan lean or NIL type player, which, like we've talked, Ohio State's maybe not going to play the NIL game for every player. Maybe quarterback, maybe corner, maybe left tackle. You might have to break the bank every now and then, but yeah, defensive end, we'll see.
Yeah, like you said, and we've got some information coming in the boarding house today about a freshman at Ohio State who is not from Ohio. They are recruiting the best of the best, so it's not necessarily besmirching anybody's talent if they don't go your way. It's a tough.
The Williams Nanner, how do you say that? Williams
Winery.
Winery, there you go. That just broke him down. I could see why Ohio State likes him a smidge better. So just to put a little meat on that bone and just not make up players. The player playing behind me will give Brian Robinson a run for his money. So it's not like they're going to miss out if they don't get him. But he is a talented player and he has upside, and you hate to see him go to Michigan with the motivation to come back and haunt you.
Can't get everybody. All right, Kevin Brown has a question. What's the word on KJ Bolden? All right, Bill, this one's interesting to me because normally KJ Bolden, Georgia native, I believe, highly coveted by the Bulldogs. I believe he's listed as a safety, which is kind of means athlete to me. He's also the cousin of Perry Eliano, who is actually Ohio State's safeties coach. So now, if your cousin is a safety and you're the safeties coach, shouldn't you be able to attract your cousin to the fold? Bill, go.
All right, these questions are killing me as far as my rumblings and rumors column, because I've got that coming out again, the next edition in the next day or so. And the first or second item that I've already got on there is about KJ Bolden and where Ohio State stands. So I'll go ahead and kill my own column a little bit here. But I was talking to a really, really good source in Georgia. I believe it was yesterday, and we talked about KJ Bolden. And that is going to be an interesting recruitment. As this person said, KJ Bolden loves Ohio State. As this person put, he loves it up there. But you've got the Georgia Bulldogs right there and, in your backyard, so to speak. It's going to be interesting. I don't know which way it's going to go. And I don't think anybody knows right now, but I do think it's, Ohio State, like the source said, he loves it up there.
I don't think Ohio State would have a chance without Perry Eliano, to be honest with you. So as much as he likes Ohio State, the way Georgia's recruiting right now, it should be interesting, but that would be a major, major pull. All right, last one. We've got to go here. JoJo Trader, Bill, any chance he's in this class?
I think there's a chance, but again, that may be one of the reasons perhaps Jeremiah McClellan wants to jump in sooner rather than later, perhaps. I don't know, but not Jeremiah McClellan's a great player. So when he's ready to jump in, the pool is open, so to speak. He's that good. But, yeah, I think there's a chance Trader ends up at Ohio State. I think right now, if I had to put it anyway, I'd probably take the field versus Ohio State for Trader. But, yeah, there's a chance.
One thing you'll know is we are talking about the best of the best on here. There are so many schools that could watch this podcast and just get angry at us for saying the guys we're not going to get because they're not going to get anywhere close to those guys. So we thank Ohio State for providing us so much recruiting content. I thank myself for having Bill and Mark on the staff and making it so great. We appreciate everybody stopping by. Obviously, this is a huge weekend, people. Saturday, is the air up there or not? You got to know we will be all over that. Have a good one, Bucknutters.